Good afternoon, everyone. I'm going to get started. Seems like we might be joined by some stragglers, but might as well get us going. Cool, so thanks for coming to see me come present today. My name is Zach Sims, and I'm the co-founder and CEO of a company called Codecademy. And Codecademy teaches millions of people around the world the skills they need to find jobs. So I'm going to take the next 20 minutes or so and hopefully tell you all a little bit more about what we do, and then get some questions going at the end. Cool, so going to start with a quick snapshot of Codecademy, and hopefully it kind of explains the reason you're here and what you'll see in the next 20 minutes or so. So Codecademy, as I said, teaches millions of people around the world the technology skills they need to find jobs. At this point, there's more than 25 million of those learners spread across more than 190 countries, almost every country in the world, and more than 50,000 of those in the US only today are paying us actively for our services. And the company to date has raised more than $40 million in venture capital financing. We'll get to a little bit more of that later. So the people we raised capital from over time, in 2011, when the company started, we worked with Y Combinator and Union Square Ventures. In 2012, raised more from Index and Kleiner Perkins, and then last year raised another $30 million from Naspers Ventures. And I'll explain why. Hopefully all those people invest in the business in the next couple of minutes. So wanted to start by telling you a little bit more about the origin story behind Codecademy, what we decided to create, and really where the entire thing came from. And to do so, want to break down the experience that I had in a traditional learning institution, kind of what propelled my co-founder and I to start the business. So in 2011, I was a student at Columbia University in New York. I was a political science major. And I was spending nights and weekends working for a whole slew of startups in New York. So one of them, a company called Dropio, got sold to Facebook, and another one, a company called GroupMe, got sold to Skype. And so I was witnessing kind of this transition between learning skills like political science and writing essays and working on abstract concepts during the day, and at night and during the weekends, kind of really putting skills to the test in industry jobs and seeing the real crunch for people as they needed to find programmers, product managers, user experience designers, and skills that weren't really being taught in the classroom. And so my junior year, I started working together with my co-founder, Ryan. We started an organization on campus that taught people the basics of programming and technology skills. We learned a couple things from that exercise. The first was that technology skills weren't just germane to people that wanted to learn computer science. And instead, they were super relevant to people all across the educational spectrum who understood that the world as we knew it was being disrupted, and technology skills would be key to understanding the future. We also saw that the best way for those people to learn was by giving them an interactive, hands-on, easy-to-use form of education that was basically the opposite of what people were experiencing in the classroom. So I was taking a computer science course that same semester at Columbia and realized that while, again, during kind of nights and weekends, I was seeing programmers use cutting-edge languages like JavaScript, in the classroom we were teaching Java. And not just Java that was used in industry today, but kind of conventions from 10 or 15 years prior. And even conventional computer science classes started by trying to weed people out. So my professor stood up on the first day of class, an Introduction to Computer Science class at Columbia, and looked out at the classroom like this and said, there's 300 people in this class, 100 of you will drop over the next 2 weeks, 100 of you will fail, 20 of you will get A's, but you'll all be miserable. So not really the warmest welcome to computer science that you could have expected. And I think what happened was exactly what he said. People left in scads from a field that was important and a field where we had a huge gap when it came to hiring industry practitioners. So this experience prompted my co-founder and I to look more broadly at some of the trends that were taking place in the workforce and that were taking place in education. We noticed again that those workforce needs were changing much, much faster than people could kind of keep up with in the educational realm. This is kind of a graph of the most on-trend job we have today, which is programming and computer science, which shows that by 2020, there's supposed to be 1.4 million computing jobs in the US and 400,000 computer science students to fill them. This was when we started the business. And that was in the US alone. And so we saw a really, really large need for people to teach computer science and programming skills to prepare students for the companies and the jobs of tomorrow. But one of the key things that we thought at the time that now seems like has been commonly accepted is that programming was a skill that wasn't just for people that wanted to become engineers. So Codecademy as a company isn't founded on this notion that everyone in this room should learn to program and become a software engineer at Google or Facebook. But instead, we thought that software would permeate every other industry and become a part of every single job in the modern economy. And so we've started to see a lot of this happen today, but in 2011, this was somewhat of a kind of non-traditional viewpoint to espouse, and was really the thesis that led us to start the business. Also with the understanding that programming was the first of many skills that would kind of emerge over the next couple of years that would move much, much faster than traditional education could keep up with. So around the same time, we looked around and realized that the same students that we were going to college with were not job ready. An AP study around the same time said that 50% of college students were unemployed or underemployed after graduation. And I was seeing the same thing happen amongst my compatriots at Columbia, who were experiencing, again, getting a degree in English or computer science and then struggling to find a job after graduation. So we hit upon this notion again that programming was the most important 21st century skill, and a skill that wasn't being taught in the classroom in a way that was efficient and easy enough to fill this huge gap that existed in industry as people sought to hire more programmers and, more importantly, more digitally savvy employees who understood programming and might not be full-time programmers themselves. So we started thinking about this problem also from what I consider to be a somewhat different perspective. We thought of it as a consumer internet problem. So you'll see a lot of companies here over the next couple of days who think of themselves as education companies first. We consider ourselves a consumer internet company first, which means that we approach the problems that we're facing kind of by iterating quickly and working outside of the system. So we thought we could create a new way of teaching people the important skills they needed to find jobs in a much faster iteration loop by not relying on traditional educational structures and not selling to schools and not selling to universities, but instead going direct to consumer. So this leads us to 2011, again, when we started building the building blocks behind Codecademy. This is our first homepage. We launched with a tagline, the easiest way to learn to program. And you can see a couple early product features visible on the Codecademy homepage over here. The first is that everything we build with Codecademy is super interactive. So that terminal on the homepage is how you get started. You engage directly with programming in the browser. There are no videos, there are no long text boxes. It's literally you typing into a browser, into a terminal window, getting immediate feedback, kind of pushing yourself and getting continuous reinforcement along the way. We taught people using things like points and badges, so thinking of ourselves as competing with companies like Facebook and your other browser tabs instead of other educational companies. And lastly, super clear ways of tracking your progress and helping people understand where they stood at any given point in time and not waiting years to get a degree or something else that signaled their accomplishment. Now, this page, I think, was pretty important for a couple reasons, but converted insanely well. So more than 40% of the people that landed on Codecademy.com in our first couple of days converted to become registered users of Codecademy, which I think, when you think about the concept that we're teaching a really, really traditionally arcane set of skills, we made something much, much more approachable and easy for people to get started with. At the same time, we took this idea and we presented it to a bunch of investors on Sand Hill Road. We were told that there are only 200,000 programmers in the US, was the BLS data from that year. Now again, this didn't take into account the global shift that we thought we would see, which was, again, people learning programming in jobs that weren't necessarily programming-specific jobs and weren't necessarily at technology companies. And so we ignored the advice that we got from the folks on Sand Hill Road and launched Codecademy anyway. And within 72 hours, we had more than 200,000 people use the first version of the site. And so I think kind of early on, validating this belief that programming was not just for programmers, but instead was a quintessential skill for people in the 21st century to learn. And this kind of continued. The people that were talking about Codecademy, this is a chart of a promotion that we did called Code Year, where we got a bunch of people to sign up for Codecademy over 2 weeks as part of a New Year's resolution campaign. And you can see that the types of people that are talking about programming weren't programmers. So one is a venture capitalist, another is a journalist, New York City Mayor Mike Bloomberg, and then Boris Johnson. So these are all people that are not programmers talking about the importance of this skill set. So this led to a bunch more international partnerships that we did to help other countries around the world understand this new language and what we consider the new literacy. Working with, this is President Macri in Argentina, working with governments in Brazil and France and the United Kingdom, as people continued to try to understand how they could fit programming and computer science into their curriculums, both at the K-12 level, but much, much more importantly for us, kind of above that level, 18 and above, as people consider getting new jobs and changing professions. So how do we do all of this? Codecademy has a suite of 3 different products that we offer to our learners that I'll go into a little bit right now. But really the thing that ties all of them together is the fact that you can use Codecademy over the course of your career. So as an example here, I'm going to talk about one of our learners named Asa Smith. Asa was a construction worker making $10 an hour. Asa discovered the free version of Codecademy after a cousin of his recommended that programming might be a career that would interest him based on his problem-solving skills and abilities. He spent a couple of months on Codecademy learning for free, kind of dipping his toes into the water, then paid for Codecademy Pro for a couple of months, then got hired by Codecademy. So I'll talk in a minute about this group of individuals we have called advisors that help other learners on the platform. And then after a couple months of becoming a Codecademy advisor and increasing his salary by 150%, Asa ended up getting hired as a full-time developer, making $85,000 a year. So you can see that kind of the life cycle of a learner on Codecademy involves starting with free curriculum and becoming interested by the learning methodology that we use, spending money with us to help deepen a learner's knowledge, sometimes gaining employment with the platform, and then eventually finding a job once they've accrued enough skills themselves, and coming back to Codecademy over time as the important programming skills they need to be successful in their careers change every single year. So Codecademy has a large free content library that signs up more than 400,000 new registered users on a monthly basis. Important to note here is that we don't pay for advertising and we don't pay to acquire users. So more than 38% of people that sign up for Codecademy on a monthly basis are signing up because a friend told them to. So ordinarily, people, when I present this slide, are a little bit confused. How do you build something that has this much traction without paying for advertising? And I think the real differentiator, again, is the product experience. And so if you use the product and kind of get that continuous reinforcement and interactivity, what happens is that most developers, when they're asked the question, where should I go to learn to program, will recommend Codecademy. Or most people that have had a base experience getting started with Codecademy will do the same and recommend it to their friends. And so we continue to increase this number by launching new courses on a monthly basis. So you can see a bunch of the skills that we have available on the site right there. We have courses that have been created not just by our in-house content creation team, but also by companies like Facebook, Box, Twitter, and a couple of others that tell you more about their technologies as they seek to reach this platform of millions and millions of programmers. And we're able to create courses very, very quickly, again, kind of outmoding the problem that we originally had when we created Codecademy of education lagging behind industry. So a couple quick stories for you. This is Sasa, who grew up in Bosnia and started using Codecademy after his family was given first modern PC in his town, studied economics in college, and then discovered Codecademy and learned for free, teaching himself PHP, staying super, super diligent with the content available on the site, getting a user experience internship, and in his words, now has double the standard of living of those around him. And so what we discovered early on was what we've done with Codecademy by making these skills easy to use, kind of piecemeal and available anywhere in the world, is make it possible for people like Sasa to experience a global and world-class education at a low, low price point. Then there are stories closer to home. This is Carrie, who moved from the finance department to the engineering department at Airbnb. I think one of the key things for Carrie was that the process of learning on Codecademy didn't just take place as she transitioned from finance to engineering, but continues to take place post getting this new engineering job. She told us that she uses Codecademy pretty regularly as she gets spun up on new projects and sees new different types of technologies that she needs to learn to stay up to speed. And lastly, we talked about Asa earlier, but again, Asa went in the span of 9 months from being a construction worker to having a full-time programming job that pays more than $80,000 a year. So, quick walkthrough of some of the features available to our learners on Codecademy. This is our learning environment. So you can see there's no videos. It's interactive. You kind of have some text on the left-hand side that explains what you can do. In the middle is an actual programming environment. And on the right is kind of real concrete results where you can see exactly what it is that you're building as you're building it. And this is really what makes it easy for our learners to learn, is that kind of continuous reinforcement and learning by doing. So later on, we launched a paid product called Codecademy Pro, which at this point has many tens of thousands of active subscribers. We listened to our learners who told us that they needed a different feature set to go deeper in their learning to take them closer to upgrading their careers. So in addition to all the free content that's available to our learners in the free version of Codecademy, we include new and different types of interactive projects. So there are quizzes that are available to our learners that are, again, interactive and not video-based, and projects that allow people to build in their own development environment interactively and getting continuous reinforcement. One of the other features we offer is a path that helps learners pull together all of our content and piece it together towards a way they might end up finding a job. And I think one of the coolest is a group of people that we have called advisors. There are hundreds of these people around the country. Most of them are former Codecademy students who we hire to help other Codecademy students as they learn. And so what we saw was that a lot of learners on the platform would get confused and leave because programming seemed super difficult and they would reach a hurdle that they couldn't jump over. But now, when they're confused, they can press a button, chat window pops out, and they're instantly chatting with someone who was in the same spot that they were a couple of months ago and can help them advance through that problem. So again, Codecademy Pro is less than 2 years old at this point. It's many tens of thousands of active paying subscribers. Quick story from Codecademy Pro. This is Lacey, who currently works at Microsoft, who 6 months in after signing up for Codecademy Pro with 0 programming experience got a raise of more than $10,000 by learning SQL on Codecademy. As she said, if it weren't for Codecademy's easy-to-use platform, I'd probably be in my old job. I learned quick lessons between calls, on my lunch break, and while multitasking. And I think this is one of the really key things about what we do with Codecademy. It's because the lessons are interactive, they're small modules. You can learn at any time, anywhere, which again is different from watching an hour-long lecture or a really long video that you need to download. It requires a lot of bandwidth. So a quick tour of some of the features available on Codecademy Pro. Again, personalized learning plan, quizzes that you get access to, projects that you can use, and conversations that you can have with advisors live. Lastly, earlier this year, we launched a product called Codecademy Ready. Codecademy Ready at this point has thousands of subscribers right now. This product is in beta. We have 2 different prices that we charge users depending on what extra support they need. We have a $199 subscription for an 8-week course and then a $500 subscription for an 8-week course. Codecademy Ready is meant for serious learners who are looking to upgrade their skills and looking for specific outcomes. So over the course of 8 weeks, our students build real websites on their own machines that they can use to put into their portfolios. They get expert feedback, not just from chat and on demand, but instead in 30-minute sessions where they're chatting with other people that have been in their shoes before. They connect with their peers live in a community. And lastly, they get certified. So what we've seen is the progression of learners. Dabblers use Codecademy for free. People that are kind of slowly progressing towards a new career use Codecademy Pro. And those that are serious about accelerating their movement to a new career will sign up for Codecademy Ready. Jorge is a good example story of someone who started on Codecademy Ready. He started as a director of digital marketing at L'Oreal, enrolled in Codecademy Ready to better understand and manage the developers he worked with, and then transitioned to working and leading what's called J Labs, the innovation labs at Johnson & Johnson. And since finishing his Codecademy Ready subscription, now subscribes to Codecademy Pro to continue to do continuous learning. So the key thing here, again, is this is someone who isn't necessarily transitioning to a full-time software developer job, but this is someone who's using their technology skills to progress further in their career because those skills are an edge. This is Dan. Dan got hired as a developer at the Washington Post after, again, a somewhat similar story to ASA, started learning on Codecademy for free, upgraded to Pro, became an advisor as part of Codecademy Pro, and then helped to become a mentor on Codecademy Ready to help those learners as well. So lastly, we take those 3 products and also help companies who have this same problem of upskilling their own employees to be competitive in the 21st century. Just a couple of examples of those relationships that we have today. We worked with IBM to create special course content and training. IBM is looking to get more and more people around the world using IBM Watson, and we are the largest platform for incoming developers, so creating a course with us allows them to reach tens of millions of new potential programmers. They also use those same courses to then train their salespeople and people internal to IBM to understand Watson and those technologies. Also working with Amazon to teach people how to build voice-enabled applications with Alexa, and then helping Facebook to train plenty of their engineers internally to familiarize them with Facebook's development methodologies. It's kind of a quick peek of what we do with Facebook is help incoming employees understand best practices before they start at Facebook. So people leave engineering schools, they don't quite understand enough to write production code, and we help them make that switch at Facebook. So again, what we've built here at Codecademy is a set of learning experiences for people that are learning the skills they need to find jobs in the 21st century. And we've done it for every type of learner. So we have millions of learners that are learning for free on a monthly basis, that are kind of dabbling and learning basic tech skills. Many tens of thousands of our learners that are using Codecademy Pro in order to learn job-ready skills. And then lastly, the bottom of the funnel, Codecademy Ready, which has many thousands of learners as well, and helps people get those jobs they need faster. So we believe that in the 21st century, every job is a technology job. And that's why we believe that what we're teaching are those core skills for people to learn, and Codecademy is the way that millions of people around the world will learn the skills they need to find jobs. Thank you. Cool. So I think I'm going to take questions for the 3 minutes and 10 seconds I have remaining. Get a microphone, I think.
But I think right now you're mainly focusing on desktop learning. What happened with the mobile strategy?
Yeah, so we did have a mobile app. App was featured by Apple. It's been downloaded a few million times. We focus on the most serious learners who we find are committed on the desktop. Because of the way we teach programming interactively, it requires a keyboard. That said, we will definitely do a mobile app again in the future, one that is kind of more of a complement to our product than a replacement for the product on desktop. Other questions? So because our IDE is online, we save every code submission that a learner ever writes, which means we have more data than basically anyone about learning programming, maybe besides GitHub. There's more than 100 million submissions on Codecademy a month of code. And so kind of what we think is that we have a better way of quantifying developer ability than most people. And so we've yet to kind of commercialize and turn that into a consumer-facing product, but the data is there. I think the way most other people are doing assessment is generally oriented around like take a test, get a certificate, call it a day. I think what we're able to do is kind of continuous assessment as you go throughout the platform. Your entire experience is related to submitting assessments, essentially.
Excuse me. How are employers getting comfortable with hiring Codecademy learners that are non-degreed or have different experience?
Yeah, I think we experience the same challenges that everybody that's doing kind of new and non-traditional education experience. We're doing a little bit to get around that. What we find also is just by the sheer fact that there are tens of millions of people around the world that have used Codecademy, many of them are hiring managers, and so they start to notice Codecademy on other resumes. There's a bit of a network effect there. At the end of the day, I think certification is one way to do that, but all of us have our own independent, different ways of certifying people. So I think it's a long game, to be honest, but software is the first segment, I think, that is tolerant of non-traditional forms of resumes, a la GitHub, Stack Overflow, Codecademy profile, something like that.
Is there any example CodeAcademy has successfully applied to K-12 education?
So we're in, the last time I checked this number was about a year ago, but about 50% of schools in the United Kingdom use Codecademy in the classroom. The United Kingdom is the first G8 country to start teaching computer science mandatory to all students. So we work with the government there to get Codecademy into the classroom. We don't have a commercial product for those students, so they use our free product. There's kind of a teacher dashboard that they use as well.
I have two questions. Well, you talked about assessments. In the Codecademy Pro, when a learner goes through that, as a company, can I see the evidence that he or she has the capability to do a website and everything, or is it just a knowledge?
So as of today, you can't as an employer, but we can. And so again, that's another kind of response to the question earlier on assessment. It's something we can commercialize eventually.
Okay. And the second question, what percentage of your users outside US?
It's about 50% at this point.
And Europe?
Europe is, I want to say, like 25% of that number.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Oh, got it. Okay, and we're done. Thanks, everyone.